Welcome to Chai with Ping. This is Ping Robert, and in this podcast, we will cover a range of different topics from culture, languages, and underrepresented stories. Join me with a cup of chai and listen to these stories.
What do you think it could be possible that why we are adjusting so much for outsiders when they come into our hometown?
No, that I feel like that definitely has a lot to do with post-colonial mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind the British invaded 90% of the world. Like there was only I can't
Yes.
remember if it's 90%. I wrote it in my book, but only 22 out of all the countries in the world, only 22 were not invaded by the Brits. And so they these things, it really goes all the way back to history. And even here in Indonesia, people still have this tendency of viewing white people as sort of
Kings
knights
and
in
queens.
shining armor.
Yeah.
You know how it goes because most of Asia is still like this. What it's like.
Yeah. The skin color, race, and language definitely take a huge part on how people react to each other. And that's my observation. I'm not, condemning anyone. However, it is the phenomena that we are facing. And I truly feel you. It's like you are trying to adjust and adapt to the U.S. context. Wow. And you kind of already cover a little bit, but what are your strengths being a multicultural? Because you also mentioned, did you live in Taiwan for a little bit, or why do you speak Mandarin?
No. So I speak Mandarin because one, I guess my family being Chinese does not really play into part, to be honest, because a lot of Chinese immigrant families here, they don't speak Chinese. For me, it's because of school. I went to a Singaporean international school, so over there, Mandarin is the second language. So that's where I picked it up. And at Singaporean schools, when they teach Mandarin, it's on equal, because you go to some schools where it's they teach something as a second language, but it's not that emphasized, and it's not they don't really drill it in. But if you go to a Singaporean school and they teach Mandarin, they're going to drill it into your head. You're going to learn.
So as important as English.
But you know what? Mandarin that you learn in the classroom is so different than Mandarin that you use in real life. I feel and I mean, obviously, this one you can't relate because you're from Taiwan. You speak Mandarin as, I'm assuming, as a first language, or right? But a lot of international kids that I know, and a lot of international kids pick up Mandarin because honestly, besides English, what other language is as popular, right? It's Mandarin. And a lot of people share the same opinion that the quality of Mandarin that we learn in the classroom definitely does not prepare us
to the real life, huh?
Well, to the real life. They kind of teach us the shit that we don't really need to know, in class, but the things that we actually do need to know in real life, that's you figure that out for yourself. So actually, a lot of my Mandarin education, I've had to just pick it up on my own. And when I go to Singapore, I speak in Mandarin, right? I mean, depending on who I'm talking to, because it depends. But
wait, what did you learn in Mandarin classes? What do they teach you, poetry or?
Oh my gosh, no.
Tell me.
No, they teach I don't even know how to explain it, but it's very, very basic. Yes, there are words that they teach that are going to be useful, but they also teach I don't know why is my head suddenly going to they teach you vocab of the different types of, I don't know, the sports and different types of food. They teach you what else
do you think that they taught you more of a literature point of view, is those words that you probably read in articles but you don't actually say it? And a lot of Mandarin classes for us, Ting Xie is very standard, even you guys do that. So a lot of spelling quizzes. The reading is mostly, I guess, you're right. Looking back, it's very
it's more academic vocabulary versus like day-to-day vocabulary.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where the struggle is, right? Because like if you can perform well in class, but then when you're taken outside of class, that's where a lot of people that learn Mandarin at school struggle, because the vocab is not the same. But I guess maybe that's the same thing with every language class, no?
Yeah,
So,
I feel so.
yeah.
Like textbook language is not the same as daily life language.
But in terms of, strengths of being a multicultural, definitely like being bilingual. I don't think I know that many international students that like, went to an international school, and especially like if it's in a different country than like where they're from. Like I don't know that many. I know of some, but I don't know that many that absolutely picked up zero language skills other than just English. So I feel that's definitely a strength. And it's so cool when I came to the US and I tell people that I speak 3 languages, and everyone looks at, when you tell them that you even speak 2 languages, like they kind of look at you like you're a genius, right? Because I feel like, and that sort of highlights how rare, or like just how rare it is in America to find someone to have people that speak more than 1 language. Because a lot of people in America, and like you can attest to this yourself, like a lot of people in America mostly just speak English.
That's right. They don't have the need to speak another language. Wait, so what is better? Like what do you speak better, Mandarin or Indonesian?
Oh, now definitely Indonesian. I used to speak better Mandarin. And then there was a time where, I used to speak really good Mandarin, and like my Indonesian was lacking. And I talk about this in my book about how like I grew up a little bit unorthodox, let's just say. And there was a time where my Indonesian was really struggling. Then I moved to my American school, where they actually did not let me take, they did not let me take the Mandarin class that I wanted to take over there. Long story short, because I had come from a Singaporean school, then I wanted to move and I wanted to take, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the IB, but for those for the listeners that are aware of the IB, I wanted to take IB standard level Mandarin. They actually did not let me because I went from a Singaporean school, and like basically to explain it, I was already at a higher level than what I wanted to sign up for in the IB for standard level. And because they said like it's too, like it would be too easy for me to go into standard level, that if I wanted to go into Mandarin, I had to go into higher level. And I did not want to do that, because I just wanted to take something that's, for language, I wanted to like take it easy. Also like for higher level, I wanted to do other subjects and not language, right? And so I just did not go with that. But I could take Indonesian, which I was already planning to anyway, because I wanted to take both languages at the same time. But I went into standard level Indonesian for the IB. And then that was the time where kind of like it shifted, and my Indonesian suddenly just like way improved. But
and also the environment, I guess, because like all the people are speaking Indonesian around you.
Oh no, actually
outside of school?
No.
Then what do they speak?
Not me, and not my group of friends. Never mind the fact that I didn't have that big of an Indonesian group of friends, if at all, to be honest with you, because my group of friends were kids from Japan, from the US, from China, from Malaysia. Like my intimate group of friends literally was a melting pot. All of us are of different nationalities and different cultures. But I also didn't have that many Indonesian friends. And even though I had Indonesian acquaintances, like my classmates, let's say, like even amongst each other, we speak in English. That's the thing about going to an international school, is that even like your language is kind of colonized. So even amongst people of your same language background, you still speak in English. So that's how I grew up. And that's why, even though I live in Indonesia, it was hard for me growing up speaking in Indonesian, because my environment has just always been in English. But I did classes back in high school, and academically I performed really well. And then I met a friend towards my senior year, who till this day, she's still one of my bestest friends, and like we talk to each other like pretty much every day. And she's she's Filipino Indonesian. So right now she's in Manila, but she grew up she grew up parts of her life here and then parts of her life in Hong Kong. But she spoke Indonesian really well, and she was actually, I feel like, the only Indonesian that was actually somehow comfortable speaking in Indonesian, at least to me. Because looking back, like in high school, the Indonesian kids, and there were so few of us because it's actually harder for locals, Indonesian passport holders like me to get into at least this international school, like the American one that I went to for high school. It was harder for locals to get into. So never mind that there were so few of us Indonesian kids. I feel like it's either they were not comfortable speaking in Indonesian at all, like in a more casual manner, or maybe they just weren't comfortable with me. I'm not so sure about that. But anyways, I met a friend that did want to speak Indonesian with me. And it really makes a difference when like you have someone to practice speaking a language with outside of classroom. Like that's really how you improve. That's really how I improved. And so my language skills just got a lot better there. And now I feel like my Indonesian skills are really, really good. Yeah. Like academically and formally it's good, but casually it's lacking. Mandarin, I have definitely forgotten so much. But I guess if you were to ship me to China or Taiwan, I guess I could live.
You could survive, I think.
I will survive. Yeah. They will just look at me weird. That's all I'm gonna say. So but strengths, being bilingual, and just being able, and like I mentioned, right, because we grew up surrounded by so many different things, we're not opposed to differences. Right? Yeah. Like we know how to handle the unfamiliarity. I feel like that's also another strength. The open-mindedness is also an inherent part of, like, if you're an international student, like you kind of have to be open-minded and like accepting those differences, and like you know what I mean. And so I feel like that's also another strength of being that's just the strength of being multicultural. In general, I feel. But other than that, I'm not sure. At the top of my head, I can't really think of any. I'm wondering if you have any at the top of your head.
I don't think I'm that much a multicultural person. But then it's just like, I guess you also mentioned on your podcast episode with Fresh Out of the Bay.
Freezy? Yeah. Yeah, Fresh Out of the Bay. Yeah.
What are the challenges being a third culture kid?
Being a third culture kid, I feel like that's a term that hasn't hit mainstream media yet. Not a lot of people really know what it means, but I feel like a lot more people are growing up that way, where it's like being a third culture kid just means that, like, the way I describe it, it's you don't really fit in anywhere. And that's the biggest challenge of being a third culture kid, because you don't really, how do I explain it? You grew up
in the same, not the same as your parents, right?
Yeah, it's not really it's not really the same as your parents, and maybe you're growing up with a different culture, or in my case, multiple cultures, right? And you adopt all of them as your culture. You don't just belong to one, and you adopt all of them, but not all of them entirely. Being a third culture kid, to me, like the way I describe it, it's kind of like you're always in between. You're never really fitting into one box. You're kind of just in between two boxes, or three, or like four, multiple boxes at the same time. There is not another definition of third culture kid, but like third culture kids traditionally are defined as the kids that move around a lot. Like in the US, like it's the equivalent of a military brat. Like I grew up with third culture kids that they've lived in 5, 6, 7 countries. Like they moved from Qatar to China to the US. They moved to Germany. Like they've like literally like lived
the
everywhere.
Expat life.
Yeah, they literally live the expat life. But and then I guess somewhere along the way, the definition of a third culture kid expanded, and so now it encompasses people like me that just grew up in culturally unorthodox. Yeah.
Or in international schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you grew up in an international school and you're surrounded by a lot of foreigners and other and expats, and you're in that international environment, chances are you're going to identify as a third culture kid. And the biggest challenge that comes with that is, again, like, you just never really feel like you belong anywhere. That goes for me growing up. That also came in tandem with the fact that I come from an immigrant family background, and I don't know how much you would relate to this, but here in Indonesia, there is a history of racial aggression towards the Chinese. And that's why, and that's why I was born in 97, right? So 98, there was like the whole riot thing that happened. They were killing Chinese people. And so that's why a lot of us left the country, and a lot of us went back, sure, like me, but a lot of other people just like, they really left. And so now it's fine. But there's definitely still a lot of racial tension between the Chinese like me and like the local Indonesians. And so growing up as an immigrant, I feel like other Chinese Indonesian kids were not made to be so cognizant of that from a young age, but I was, like, my mom let me know. And so I was always just cognizant of the fact that, like, I'm too Chinese for Indonesia, but I'm not Indonesian. But I'm too Chinese for Indonesia, but I'm not Chinese enough for China, right? Because it's also like here, like, you know the narrative, like they always tell immigrants, like, go back to where you're from, go back to China or whatever. It's like, what if I go back to China? Like, I'm not Chinese. I'm too Indonesian for China. I'm too Chinese for here. When I moved to the US, I'm too Asian for America. But when I come back to Asia, it's like, because I went to an international school, and international schools are mostly westernized, right? And so it's like, I'm too white for, so when I come back here, I'm too white for Asia. And it's like, you just never really belong anywhere. It's like, some things I'm like, with some things I'm a little white, some things I'm a little more Asian, with some things I'm more Chinese, and some things I'm more Indonesian. That's really the experience of being what have you, like a third culture kid, an international kid, a multicultural, like all of these, like they kind of intersect one another, right? Like they kind of, like we all share the same experiences. So
Are there any stories that you experienced, like how people treat you, or you kind of realize that, oh, I don't belong to either of the boxes?
From the respective boxes, I feel like here in Indonesia, I feel like that was my biggest concern when I moved back here, especially like after graduating college, and without that academic institution, like how am I going to gauge like further friendships, like how am I going to connect with more people and make new friends? So that was my concern coming back here, is like to make new friends, especially like local friends. Like I'm not in an international school anymore. I have to start making like Indonesian friends in general, whether or not they come from an international background like me. And coming here, I have had experiences where, because when I speak in Indonesian, it's a little different. I wouldn't say accented. Like I don't speak with a white accent. Like that's not what it is. I promise you it's not. But it's just like you can tell when someone doesn't speak the language. Not as local, right? Okay, even though it's weird, because it's like, what, you grew up here, you have an Indonesian name, but you don't really talk like us, you don't sound like us, you don't act like us. And so in general, my experiences here is that a lot of Indonesian kids my age that I interact with, and I guess maybe this is standard everywhere around the world, like a lot of people, maybe they're not as receptive to someone that's different. Like they wouldn't really look at someone different and think like, oh, that's cool. They would kind of just be like, okay, well, that's you. It's kind of different. Like I don't really want to mess with that. And to be honest, that's been my experience, at least. Not all the time. I've met a lot of good people that are welcoming and are understanding of why I am a little different than other Indonesian kids. But definitely something that I've experienced coming back here. Not even just like in recent months. Like I know I just came back like in March because of this whole pandemic, but even like when I come back for summer breaks and I meet new people, right? That's been the experience as well. In America, okay, now that one. See, the whole reason why I'm even writing this book to begin with is because I used to say as a joke, right? Man, if all goes wrong in my life, I could just write a book about all the funny and fucked up shit that I've experienced living in America. And I used to say that as a joke. Like I used to say that to like to just joke around with like my friends, or like even like as a conversation starter, like on a Tinder or Bumble date, like I would say that, right? But then this whole pandemic happened, and like I was, forcibly unemployed because no one is hiring, and then like I had nothing to do, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, wait, look, this is the perfect time to just write a book about that. But literally the reason why I'm writing this book is because I've had too many of these kind of stories. I don't even know where to start in telling you any of them. Like it's so much. But there's definitely
a hurtful experience, like that people might do something or say something and then you are hurt. And then like when you're super sad, you still go back to that memory. Tell me about this kind of thing.
Funny enough, see, these sort of experiences, like I've experienced people treating me badly because, or like treating me maybe not badly, but like unfairly. I've experienced that by virtue of like them knowing that I'm an international student, or like they know that I'm from Indonesia, and they like have all of these assumptions. I've had that experience. Funny enough, they've never really hurt me, and I guess that's just me as a person. Like I don't get hurt that easily, but and I wouldn't get sad over things like that. So I'm not really sure of like a hurtful experience. There have been some instances where maybe I'm not hurt, but I was definitely offended. Oh gosh, even this, I don't know where to start. I guess the first one that I can think of back in freshman year. Yeah. And again, like I wasn't hurt by this. I was just like offended, and it definitely like I thought about it for a few days. Like, why didn't anybody say anything? Like, am I just overreacting and all that type of stuff? So it definitely like stuck in my head for like quite some time back in freshman year. So I lived in a dorm. I lived in a suite, right? And so it was 2 dorms connected together by 1 bathroom in the middle. It was 2 and 2, like on my side it's 2 and on the other side it's 2. My roommate was Asian American, and then my 2 suite mates on the other side, they were both white Americans. One was from Colorado, the other one was from California. And then we had to have this meeting with our RA, with our resident advisor, because we share a bathroom, right? And so the RA wanted to talk to us about like how to delegate cleaning responsibilities, because obviously it's a shared space, like it's a shared responsibility to keep it clean and all that. And there was this, and we had a meeting in the RA's dorm, and we were talking about like, who's going to like, basically like, how are we going to handle like take turns cleaning the bathroom, right? And then one of my suite mates, and I guess like, looking back, and she was a nice person. And so I guess she was trying to say it as a joke, but at the same time, I was like really taken aback when she said that, well, I mean, Indah's from Indonesia, so she probably knows more about cleaning than we do. So I was kind of like, wait a second. Are you saying that just because I'm from Indonesia, I should I should be the one cleaning the bathroom? And I didn't say anything, right? And like she said it, and like she was, laughing to herself, and I kind of like, like forced a laugh to make it not awkward. And I don't know like whether my other suite mate, like her roommate or my roommate, heard that, or if the RA heard that, or maybe they did, but like they didn't think much of it. And like that's why I was kind of like, wait, isn't that kind of wrong to say? Like, why isn't anybody saying anything? And so like for a few days I was thinking about it, and I was like talking about it with some of my friends too. And I was like, am I just making a big deal out of this? And like, even my friends were like, no, that's not okay to say.
It's not okay.
But then I'm like, wait, but then why didn't anybody say anything then? And so yeah, I was just like I was just so confused. I wasn't hurt by it. I was like a little bit offended, but also at the same time I was unsure whether or not I should feel offended. But I definitely felt offended. So that was one. Yeah. again, like I'm trying to like run through my head of like what good stories to tell you, because there have been so much, and some of them are really big, some of them are like kind of small, and like I would say like the next biggest one, I rushed for, again, wasn't hurt. It definitely did not sit well with me though, and yeah, for the next 2 years after this incident, I was still bitter about it. There was this, I'm not going to I'm not going to say the name, but there is this one business fraternity in my university. It's kind of risky because there's only two, but there's one of the business fraternities in my university. I was rushing for it back in sophomore year, my second year, and I went to all of the rushing events. I networked with everybody. You know, I did all the things that I was supposed to do as someone who was going to rush for a business fraternity, right? And I remember at that time, a really close friend of mine at that time was a brother in that fraternity. And so he was the one helping me kind of like, network with all of these, like network with the right people and like to do all of these things to kind of like make sure that I get in, right? Like, so he was kind of like helping me, give me that leg up. I remember I did the interview. I remember like, I don't do a lot of interviews where I leave out of it feeling very confident and like good with my answers. And like, so that was like one of the very few times, like I felt really good about, how I performed in there. And just given the fact that like, and it, further backed up by the fact that I've been attending all the rushing events, and like it seems like all the brothers in the fraternity seem to like me. And like I was just doing everything like really well. I was like and like, a close friend of mine, like is a brother, and like he could vouch for me. Like I was feeling pretty confident. I'm like, oh yeah, like I feel like I could actually I could get this, right? And the night of they were deliberating whether or not like who gets in and who doesn't. Obviously I wasn't there, right? But my friend who is a brother in there, obviously get to witness the whole thing, like the whole deliberation process. And I got a call that night, and he told me, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You didn't get in. And here's the thing. There were more, I think there were like a few more international students, maybe like 4 or 5 of us in total, international students that rushed. There were like 5. Yeah, there were like 5 of us. And I knew 2 others. I knew of 2 others because one was from my home country. Like this other girl, like she was from Indonesia, and this other girl was a close friend of mine, and she's Vietnamese. And so background story. So this brother that I'm friends with is also friends with the other international student from Vietnam. So all, like the 3 of us, like we know each other, and at that time we're pretty close. And he called me and he was like, oh my gosh, you didn't get in. And I don't want to give like the actual name, so I'll just say Carrie, as like a fake name for my Vietnamese friend. You didn't get in and Carrie didn't get in. And he told me over the phone when they were deliberating, the reason why they did not accept me into this fraternity was because they said something along the lines of, well, for both me and the other international student, let's say her name's Sarah, me and Sarah, who are both from Indonesia, we came like literally like one after the other because we're both from Indonesia, right? And what they said for the both of us, well, they're from Indonesia, so they probably don't know a lot about blah 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 blah. So that was like along the lines of why they rejected us. It's because we're from Indonesia and they assume that we do not know much about something. My friend, like when he was telling the story, he didn't really pick up on that.
Yeah.
But when he told me, I was like, no fucking way. That is not okay. And then for Carrie, my Vietnamese friend, what they said for her, like why she shouldn't, like when they made the case for why she shouldn't get in, they mentioned like, oh, like her English is not that good, and like making all these like actually like, and of course like maybe I'm a little bit biased because like Carrie's my friend and everything, but even just like objectively speaking, like yes, she speaks with a heavy Vietnamese accent, but that's not a problem in terms of you comprehending what she says, or like that's not an issue for her. Like when she's talking, like the when you're speaking in English, it's a utility thing, right? Like, can you use it? Can you use it, and can the other person understand you, right? And anybody that talks to this girl, you'll be able to understand her, whether or not she has like a very thick Vietnamese accent or not. Yeah, exactly. So and then he told the both of us that, like, the reason why she didn't get in, and then come to find out, like, a little later on, basically, like, there were, I think, like 4 or 5 of us international students, and like, how convenient is it that all of the people that got rejected were the international students, with the exception of this one guy that was apparently like, this one guy, he's international, he's from Hong Kong, and like, he got in because he's close with one of the head, I don't even know what the terminology is, but like one of like the head people in the fraternity. And so how convenient is it that all of the internationals get rejected? And literally, so the thing with this fraternity, and this is me giving away so much, and I'm kind of scared of like getting in trouble if anybody from my school listens to this, but this business fraternity has kind of a rep of like all of the Asian Americans going in there. Like, if you're like, they always say, like, I remember I was rushing, right? And then I was rushing, and I told my friend that I was rushing for a fraternity, and then they asked me, oh, is it this one, like, insert name? And then I was like, oh my gosh, how did you know? And then he was like, yeah, that's where all the Asians go to, right? So it's like that popular for, like, you know, all the Asians go there. And but the thing is, it's not Asian, it's Asian American, right? And there were and like, when we were rushing, there were so many other Asian American kids, and even just like local American kids, right? Like, like, that were rushing for that, and like, all of them got accepted, and and pretty much all of the internationals got rejected, even though all of us internationals were the ones that went to all of the rushing events. And like, okay, granted, maybe like some of them didn't do that well during the interview. Like, I certainly feel like, I mean, I'm not trying to like, you know, ruffle my, like, I'm not trying to like hype myself up like, oh, I'm like so good at everything, but no, like, I actually, like, to be honest, like, I felt like I did really well, and like, I deserved to like get in there. And like, if they had given me like a different answer as to like why I didn't get accepted, of course, like, I'll be fine with it. But if you're just saying like, I, you know, shouldn't get accepted because I'm from Indonesia and I probably don't know anything about this or this or this, like, what the heck is that? That's so fucking, maybe not racist because we're all the same race, but like xenophobic, right? Like, what makes you think that? And but yeah. And then a little later, I, like, you know, we find out that this fraternity has had a lot of issues in the past with these sort of things, which was not surprising. And then it was the drama of my sophomore year, but my first semester of sophomore year, at least. And then for years later, I'm still bitter about it, but it's fine.
I can feel I feel it's like you're just getting it rejected by where you're from, and that's just not fair. Well, so from your stories, I can definitely hear that there's a lot of urge that you want to advocate for your people, for international students, or you know, just for general, like, unfairness or injustice in a society. What inspired you to write this book on international students?
The first thing that inspired it is just my own life, right? And like, I'm not saying this to be full of myself or whatever, but I've always felt like I live the kind of life where like you could turn this shit into a book or a movie, because it's so different. And like, the people that I've told my life story to, they kind of listen to it, or like they kind of listen to it and they look at me and they're going like, wow, that's kind of insane, right? And like, all of these different things that I've experienced experiences that are so common amongst people like me, like international kids like me, but never really get portrayed in mainstream media. And that's also the other thing, right? When you're thinking about it, what does it mean to be an international, right? Like, don't just think of an international student like me that like went off to college and like was on a student visa and like lived there for a few years and then like comes back, right? Being an international student, I feel like, is more, it covers a bigger and wider group of people. Being international comes with that international or like multicultural multinational experience that a lot of people, regardless of your student status, like in college or what have you, feel that. I don't know if this is making sense to you, but how do I cut this bit out later when you're editing, like me just like fumbling with my words.
Sure.
So a lot of what I'm writing this book is inspired by my life, but it's also inspired by the lives of the other international kids that I grew up with and whose stories we share amongst each other, and like we share amongst so many other internationals all over the world, and yet it never gets portrayed in the mainstream media. I feel like there's so much that everybody in the world can learn from kids who grew up like me, especially in a world that's becoming increasingly more globalized and more interconnected. The lines of domestic and international, I feel like as the years go by, are getting more and more blurred. I feel like there's just so much that if you're not an international and you're just someone who's like purely local, purely domestic, there's a lot for you to learn from international kids like me that have had this broader world perspective. And the same way, I feel like this is so hard to answer. I'm like fumbling with my words a little bit. I'm so sorry, but I
think it's very personal to you as well, because along the journey that you felt a lot of people have misconception or stereotype labels on students like you or me, and yeah, just like what you said, you really want your voice to be heard, stories to be told, and more people can learn from that. And as we're going globalized, those voices are not minoritized anymore. It can be another mainstream.
And it's also not just, I don't want this book to just be like, oh, well, these are the stories and these are the experiences and like it sucks and like that's it. Like the big takeaway that I want for the internationals like me that are reading this, for those who struggle with a sense of belonging and like are torn in between two or more worlds, and just like for those who walk through life the way I did or similar. A takeaway that I want when they read this book is not just these experiences and these feelings are it's not just a me thing, like it's a lot of other people have experienced this, like not just that. I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know how to use them to empower yourself to become more resilient, more perseverant, and build strength out of something that was difficult and maybe even painful.
Wow. That is powerful. Yeah, that statement is definitely going on the trailer. It is powerful. Yeah. And I really look forward to it. Are you still recruiting for stories or participants?
Yes, it's still rolling. Because it's quality over quantity. So the quantity doesn't really matter. It's just about if I get more people like that sign up for this, then every time I send out a survey, like I have a greater chance, like likely it's going to be a bigger number of people that answer the survey because it targets more people. And so yes, it keeps rolling. There is, I don't know how you're going to go about doing this. Like maybe you can link my Instagram below this podcast. And if you go to my bio, there is a link called, I think it's called Indah's book. It's a tiny URL and then /Indah's book survey. You can sign up on that. You can sign up on there. And how it goes is that when you sign up, every week, I'm taking a 2-week break right now just because I'm so tired. But pretty much every week or every week or every other week, I send out a survey for a certain chapter. Like I just finished chapter 4. The one that I did with you was about food, and then next week, because because this is the final week that I'm taking a break, I promise. But the next week I'm going to release chapter 5, and then the week after is going to be chapter 6. So it keeps rolling forward. And then at the very end, everybody's going to have the opportunity to go back and do all of the previous chapters that they missed. And you can either do it as a survey if you're someone that doesn't like to talk over the phone, and like you'd rather write your answers, you can answer it on a survey, which most people do that. And then there are other people that it's the opposite. They don't want to type. They're too lazy. They want to just talk it out. Yeah. Then you can sign up for an interview slot with me during the week. So it's completely flexible, and there are questions where if you want to skip on it and you don't want to answer it, you can. And not all chapters you have to answer, because some chapters are going to be more relevant to some people than others. But yes, it's still open. So if anybody's listening to this and you're thinking, man, I really want to share my stories and my experiences in this book, please sign up. Link is in my bio on my Instagram, which my Instagram is linked below this podcast, I think. So
yes, it will be. Yeah, definitely. So the listeners, you can find the link in the show notes, in the episode notes. But like, Indah, what is the timeline? When are you, like, so people, if they listen to this like into 2021, are you still rolling on, or like what is your plan for that?
Oh no. So my expected publication date is not, I don't have a specific date yet, but it's somewhere June or July of next year. So this is like a year-long journey for me in terms of like the I guess so to say, application for like wanting to like participate in this. It's going to, when I decide that I've already had enough people, or maybe if I finish with all the surveys and the interviews earlier on, but there will be some sort of notification from me. And I'll turn the survey off. And so like, if the survey's off and you can't answer anything, that's how you know it's done. But I'll also like make an announcement that like, it's, it's over. Like I don't need to be looking for more people right now. I think I'm like 400, like in the, like the lower end of 400. Okay. Like maybe like less than 410 people as of right now. And that's a lot of people. I could definitely I could keep going more. I feel like my limit would be like, if I hit 1,000 people, that's insane. So, or even like 700 people, I think I would be like, whoa, that's a lot. But yeah, in terms of when it's going to end, I'll make that one very clear. But in terms of when this book is going to be released, hopefully next summer.
Year. Yeah. Okay, cool. What are the topics that you're covering?
Ooh, okay. Well, the topics. So one of them we just named because I just interviewed you last week. There's a whole chapter about food and just like the eating and like the diet culture so this entire book is kind of looking at the Anglosphere versus the non-Anglosphere, right? Anglosphere referring to the US, UK, Canada, Australia. So like depending on like which of those Western countries that you lived in. So it's always comparing Western versus us non-Western, right? And so like with the chapter about food, it's just comparing how the rest of the world eats and like how we eat and like our eating culture compared to the Western one. Before that, that's chapter 4. So chapter 3 was about origins, right? And so it's about the question like, where are you from? And like the complexities of ethnicity and nationality and all that. Chapter 2 was about languages. Why do we speak English? And like for most of us, like for a lot of us, why do we speak English as our most fluent language, even though we don't come from an English-speaking country or an English-speaking background? Chapter 1, the very first one is about names. That one I talk about my experiences and my complications growing up with my name, and then like further complications that I experienced moving to the U.S., having the kind of name that I do. If you come to the U.S. without an English name, it's kind of like chances are it's going to get butchered, right? So chapter 1, was about names and just how we walk through the world differently depending on the kind of name that we were given or the kind of name that we go by. The next chapter that's going to come next week is about college culture. So that's specifically like that's the I guess stereotypical international student experience right there. Like, international students that come to all these Western countries are like, they come for college and all that and just a lot about, I'm trying not to give too much, but there's college culture and then other topics. There's going to be party / hangout culture. There's going to be an entire chapter about that, and that one's going to be really spicy because and then there are going to be chapters about, I haven't started writing those, so I can't remember at the top of my head, but I have them listed down. It's, I have chapters that talk about fetishization and exoticization, talking about household differences. And so like when you're walking into a white Western household versus like the households that we grew up in, and like how, like the differences between those, and like how jarring sometimes like those differences are. And a lot. I'm trying to fluctuate the order of the chapters in a way that like it goes from serious to like something more lighthearted in the middle, and then go back to serious again, like and so it's a good mix of deep, intense philosophical discussions about all these like bigger and broader things, but also something more lighthearted and fun, like food that we just had, or like college culture or party culture. Those are more fun.
Looking forward to it. Well, so we have been coming to the end of this episode. Thank you so much, Indah. And let me pronounce your name. I hope I pronounce it right. Indah Gunawan.
Yes.
Yay! Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And yes, I hope everybody enjoyed this. And again, link to the survey in my Instagram bio if anybody wants to sign up.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to Chai with Ping. Let us hear your voices and stories. Please share this episode, like and follow us on Instagram at Chai with Ping. You can also email us at chaiwithping@gmail.com. Till next time.